Hey guys, I know what you're thinking. It's been a whole month and I haven't been posting any videos lately. I know it's a really bad look to not post videos after such a long period of time, but there has been so many things going on in my life lately, and I think the most comfortable thing that I'm ready to share on camera was that I got really sick during the month of October, and it was a really bad flu which lasted for more than a week, and after that my luck just kept running out as the weeks went by. And it was just last week that I got back from my trip to Japan, and I think I really needed that trip, so I decided that I would restart my book reviews once I got back. But the good news is I did manage to read all the books on my TBR list, and I am so ready to start reviewing them and sharing my thoughts with them with you guys. Now, this is gonna counter everything I just said, but the first book that I'm gonna mention is something I didn't manage to finish. And that book is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. I was around 45% of this ebook that I actually placed it down and just flat out DNF'd it. And that makes me really sad because the book is actually a folk horror, and I do really like that genre. I mean, I did read Rhoda Bones, and yes, I might not have liked it as much as I thought I would. It was a pretty fun read, and it's always a nice thing reading about terrible antler people hunting this group and doing carnage in the snowy Siberian town. Twisted Ones unfortunately did not have any of that thrill. It just didn't have anything at all, at least in my opinion. So basically, The Twisted Ones is about this writer who, together with her dog, goes to visit her estranged grandmother after she passes away. The first horror factor there is that grandma, or the dead grandma, was a pretty awful person, and she was a hoarder, which, if you ask me, is a terrible idea on its own. And then our main character discovers that her grandmother's husband, who is not her grandfather, by the way, he had also passed away as well, and had this journal that he kept in the house. In the journal, he wrote about these twisted ones, and I never really got to finish the book to discover what they actually looked like, or if they actually existed, but I'm imagining them to be this big straw people. So why did I end up DNFing this book? It was mostly because I found the 90s style writing a little too immature for me. And when I say 90s style, I mean Goosebumps, it was a little bit kiddie and just didn't fit the overall tone of the book. And because some people were pointing out this is giving total Blair Witch vibes, I just don't see the connection, because in Blair Witch there is actual tension. Here in this book, all the main character ever did was clean the house. And yes, that kind of bothered me that nothing was happening. No horror, no nothing. It was just house cleaning, and for a good chunk of the book. So yeah, this was a total skip for me. But of course, if you have read the book, does it get better after the half of it? Because in my opinion, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was bored out of my wits and had to put it down. Another book that ended up being a total dud for me was The Last House of Needle Street by Catriona Ward. And I am so sad because I really did want to like this book. Now, I'll probably do a mini review for this because I think there's a lot to unpack from this book. I definitely don't think that it is a must read, or I don't consider it one of my favorite reads this year. However, I'm not going to be reviewing this in detail for this video, and I'll just save it for another one, or maybe a mini review. And now let's talk about the star of today's video, a book that I actually liked, and that is Our Wives Beneath the Sea by Julia Armfield. This is definitely one of my favorite books ever, of all time. It is a stunning debut of a novel, a sapphic love story at the center of it all, and a backdrop of cosmic and bodily horror. You can't ask for anything better. Now, I think it does help that I am a bit biased. I do love a good sapphic love story, and I really, really love the ocean. I know the title says sea, but It'll come together, I promise. Now, full disclaimer, I can't swim, I don't scuba dive, and I do not have any future plans for deep sea exploration. But I have a profound curiosity of the unknown. I mean, don't you just love the idea that the ocean is this big body of water that surrounds the entire planet, and yet we know more about the moon than about our oceans? So that is a big theme in this profound and very, very interesting book. So two of our main characters is Leia, who is a deep sea explorer, and the other one is Miri, her wife. So one day Leia, under the instructions of this mysterious organization called the Center, goes on a research trip with two other co-workers, Jelka and Mateo. The trip, which was initially planned to be just like 3 weeks, it was supposed to be like this 3-week expedition, ends up with Leia and her team being under the ocean for 6 months, totally oblivious of any time or space, which is a terrifying. Now, straight off the bat, we are made aware that Leia does make it out, but through Miri's chapters, we kind of realize that she isn't the same person anymore. And no, it's not like just PTSD. There's something seriously wrong with Leia. She starts exhibiting like these really weird symptoms that tend to worsen over time. So the first weird thing that happens is that Leia starts like craving copious amounts of salt water. She just wants to start sitting in the tub all the time, and she has like this sort of what I interpret as like oyster-like texture in the skin. I think that's what that's the exact description that Julia Armfield actually uses in the book. And as somebody that does eat oysters, that is enough to make me squeezy. Is that the term? Squeezy. And as the chapters go on, it just gets worse. She starts bleeding from her gums, and she really starts she just stops communicating like a human being and spits out only like random facts, like she's some Wikipedia page or something. For Miri, like at first, it is totally a blessing to have Leia back, of course. She thought she was a goner, and she thought she was gonna be like a widow. And she had already started grieving for Leia and convincing herself that she wasn't gonna come back. And then here she was, like a shell of the person that she used to be, and nobody will explain to her what happened. All the Center said that she was not going to be the same, and that's it. So this book has every element of horror and romance, and it's just so incredibly sad. And I think that it's being, sectioned in such a unique way. So if you are familiar with the Layers of the Ocean, the sections are like the parts are actually arranged by that. So it starts with the Sunlight Zone, the Twilight Zone, the Midnight Zone, the Abyssal Zone, and the Hadal Zone. And as you might have guessed, Leia's story and her symptoms just get worse as we go deeper and deeper into the ocean. And I know Leia goes through a lot of physical pain and suffering, but I really did feel for Miri. Yes, if you ever read her chapters, you'd be frustrated on how selfish she was, but whatever she went through, it was totally understandable and very it was such a human response to everything that was going on around her. And I can only imagine how frustrating it was for Miri to not have any answers. I mean, you as a reader, if you ever read this book, or me as a reader, I knew what was going on with Leia, what she went through when she was in that expedition, because we learn it through her chapters. However, Miri in real time has no idea what's going on. Throughout the book, she acts as this primary caregiver for someone she loves deeply but is no longer there. I think this book really shines on its commentary on grief. I mean, how do you grieve someone who is still alive and technically still there but is no longer who they used to be? And Julia Armfield, she just brings that to life with one magical sentence after another. I really like how this book was written and how raw all the emotions were. And there is a quote in this book that makes me really emotional when I think about it. It's the part where Miri says that if Leia ever died, there would be nobody in this world that she would have truly loved. And, that really gets me. That really gets me each time. I think it kind of reminded me of, that show WandaVision, where Vision says that, grief is just love persevering. And I just tied these two together because it just shows that grief is truly anchored in love. So on Leia's end, we do get a lot of action. Leia was again with two people from the center when they were exploring the ocean and things got wrong. And naturally, the time beneath the sea makes them lose their minds. There are so many eerie and claustrophobic scenes in her chapters, so I think that's where the horror element also chimes in. While nothing truly terrifying does happen until the very end of Leia's chapters, there is a bit of cosmic horror, another of my favorite genres, but then, it's very subtle. In other words, you will not get Cthulhu chasing Kristen Stewart and her crew at the bottom of the ocean at the very end of this book. Let's talk about the issues that I did have with Our Wives Beneath the Sea. Now, again, I'm the type of person that I'm generally okay with leaving things up for interpretation, but I don't like it when writers overdo it. As is the case with The Last House on Needless Sea, this book does suffer from the same factors. And simply put, I just feel like there was so many loose ends. And spoiler alert, if you haven't read this book, make sure to skip this part. Okay, so my first question was probably the most obvious one, who were the center and what did they want Leia to do when they went to that expedition? What was the purpose of the expedition? That was never explained. Why didn't Miri take Leia to the doctor at all? I mean, again, it's another basic question, but I really wanted it answered. What was she afraid of? Now, we sort of knew what happened to Jelka, but what about Mateo? Did he have the same symptoms as Leia? And most of all, what the hell was wrong with Leia? I mean, I know in the Cthulhu mythos, whenever you see the monster, you would lose it in the head. I mean, that was stated in the Mountain of Madness. So what was it that Leia saw underneath the ocean that drove her to have all these symptoms and drove her to become who she was at the very end of the book? Now, I'm asking that last question because the thing is, when Leia did resurface, she was perfectly normal. None of her chapters actually suggested that she was actually losing her mind. So spoilers aside, obviously, I really do wish that Julia Armfield would put together these loose ends. I wouldn't mind if another book was written to just explain all those details, a guide to Our Wives Beneath the Sea, but I don't see that happening, to be honest, although it would be nice. Nonetheless, I really did like this book. I give it a solid 3.5 to 4 stars and above. Not a solid 5 though, because of the points which I just stated. It was, at the end of the day, a very beautiful gothic cosmic horror love story and commentary on grief. Okay, we made it to the end of the video, so thank you so much for watching. Next week I will be filming my review of these two classics, which I had so much fun reading, if you can tell from my face. So it's gonna be a back-to-back review of The Haunting of Hill House and Rosemary's Baby, so stay tuned for that. And of course, stay tuned for my Japan travel videos, which I will also be uploading to my channels in the following weeks. Thank you so much for watching and for still being here and not unsubscribing. And if you're new here, please do not forget to subscribe. I'll see you on my next video. Bye!